Greetings, everyone, and welcome once again to Bat Minute Beyond Chunkz of the Joker. This is the podcast where our business is concluded, but not when it comes to talking about every chunk of Batman Return of the Joker. Batman Beyond Return of the Joker. One chunk at a time. That doesn't work unless people know what the chunks are. This is a bit of a mess, this intro, quite frankly, but I am one of the hosts, Niall McGowan.
I'm your other host, John Parker. I don't think I can possibly beat that. I mean, I'm just here to get chunky. You know, that's what I'm here to do every week.
Up all night to get chunky. That should be the tagline of the whole season.
T-shirt coming soon.
Oh, but we are here, joined by two guests who haven't been on in a hot minute, but are previously frequent guests who have worked together, but they haven't worked together in a while. We have both from Joe and Joe versus the Minute, the Joe versus the Volcano, minute by minute treatment. It is Tierney and Jarf.
Woo!
Hey, thanks for having me on.
Yay, welcome back.
I'm good. Yeah. I used to be a camp counselor, so I immediately went to that clap your hands when it's like, it's time to get chunky.
Yeah.
No, time means nothing anymore. I've decided officially. Like, what is time when we're years? When did we last work together, Jarf? Who knows? Time is meaningless.
It's true. Like something came up on my Instagram reminds you of things, and it was like 7 years ago today. I was like, hang on, that was like 2 weeks ago. What are you talking about?
And after all of those recordings together, I think Tierney has now broken her record. It was under 10 seconds until she brought up camp.
I forgot about that. Wow, that's special.
Called out.
Just trying to, almost tempted to make a bet with you for next season, Tierney, when we're covering like the 60s TV show, which is classically always referred to as being camp. And
there
I'd be
we
like,
go.
well, you can make it through episodes of that without ever bringing up camp.
Right.
we will send you a signed mug or something.
And folks listening, it is organic. That obviously was not planned. I had no idea the word chunk was going to come up so many times that that's where my brain would go. Like, it's truly a podcasting gift that
That's
no
how
one
we
asked
roll.
for.
We get chunky every week. That's what we're down to do, you know?
Well, so this is my first, entering the Beyond Batman universe when you sent me this. I had to have a little, someone stood in front of the TV, and before they pressed play, they explained, okay, so it's the future.
Oh.
There's this guy called Terry. You're going to get to know him well. I knew nothing going into this. So, yeah, I had to have the, 3-sentence catch up previously on before I watched Return of the Joker. So,
and did you watch the whole film, or have you've only seen this chunk?
No,
now?
So I watched the whole film, which I'm so glad I did. And it's one of those things, especially in this chunk that we're going to talk about. I have watched so much Batman content, and some of it's in different universes, and some of it's in the future, and some of it has flying cars. And there are names, and they come up all the time, but sometimes they mean different things, and I'm waiting for different deaths to occur that don't occur. It's an experience.
Well, I think even I've got notes for later about continuity, which I'm like, I guess it's kind of in this universe, but I guess some people will be like, no, that's Batman Beyond continuity to the comics. That's not continuity to the animated show. But it's written by the same people. I was like, but no, that doesn't count because the art style is different over here. And he's like,
yeah.
Oh my god.
I was reading
Tierney,
about
I'm glad that you watched the whole movie too, because in particular with this chunk that we're focusing on, it starts out with Barbara saying, and that's what happened. And I watched the chunk before I revisited, and I was like, okay, damn it. What had happened that she... So confusing.
That's a great lure to make sure everybody watches the whole movie, is deliberately start every clip with and so that's what happened.
It's like in a movie when they cut in on a joke and it's just them giving the punchline and it makes no sense. And they're like, and so we had a bowl of Jell-O, and everyone's like,
Somebody said, that's right, Grandma, get back to the line.
It's one of my favorite things because I know for a fact they haven't even written the joke. They're like, no, come up with the stupidest thing possible as the punchline and just go.
Well, I think that was one of the big things, because then we have when we were talking about Batman Forever, one of the big famous riddles in culture is like, why is a raven like a writing desk? And people to this day is like, oh, Lewis Carroll wrote that for Alice in Wonderland. And it was just like, there must be an answer. And it's like, I'm pretty sure he didn't know what it was. It was just gibberish he was coming up with.
Beautiful, messing with literally generations of people from beyond the grave. I mean, that's a legacy.
Yeah. Although in this chunk, we also get Melissa Joan Hart. And one of the big famous things I remember from Sabrina the Teenage Witch is Harvey constantly going, mitosis is. Mitosis is. And for years, I just didn't know. Like, mitosis is what? Come on, man.
And to this day, you don't know.
I think I eventually did have to cover it in like chemistry. And I was like, oh, I am so ready for this definition.
Prepped.
This is all Babysitters Club's fans finally hitting biology and the Claudia's rap song. When we first put it on, I was making fun because, we pulled up the DVD menu and I'm like, this is the most 80s thing that has ever transpired. And then the opening credits started and I'm like, this is the most, and then the names start coming across. And I'm like, holy hell, this is like a stacked cast for this movie.
It was a shame, actually, Tierney, because should have thought, because we got to talk about Rachel Lee Cook earlier as well.
Yeah.
And of course, the Babysitter Club of fame, Rachel Lee Cook. And we even got to touch on it, because apparently she loves that film, but she's just like, don't ever watch my performance in it. I'm absolutely awful in that movie. It's like, you're a kid, though, for God's sake. What do you want?
No, I rewatched that a couple of years ago, and I was like, this is hitting me differently than it did when I was a child, but it's all good. When I saw Melissa Joan Hart, and this is a great chunk for boy, because you get everyone. It's great.
Yeah.
But yeah, shout out to Will Friedle. And I was constantly thinking of Eric Matthews in my head. And he's like, I am pleased with squirrels. And it's very hard to take him seriously as Batman when that is what your mental image is. So
I think I've got slightly blessed because I've still never seen Boy Meets World. So I'm just like, all Will Friedle is to me is Terry McGinnis. So it's like, oh, that's what I know him from. So
yeah,
it wasn't that big here, was it? Like, it was on TV, but it wasn't like the biggest thing ever.
Yeah. It was just it just didn't have the cultural cachet. But Jarf, like, what angle are you coming at this from? Like, are you well versed in Bat-Minute Beyond lore?
So the opposite of Tierney.
Oh.
So I watched this when it first aired, the cartoon. I mean, Batman Beyond, it was my jam. I would watch it Saturday mornings on the WB, and I just really liked the fresh take. I liked the character designs. I love the future tech, and it was a breath of fresh air because it was a new situation for the Batman family, and I liked how Terry's personality contrasted with Bruce's.
It's they got a good dynamic between them, because it's just this constant, like, it's
a dynamic duo.
They are a dynamic duo.
Could say.
So we might as well jump on in here, though, because we are at this point on chunk 10, and chunk 10 opens. It begins with an ending of a flashback, and it ends with the beginning of the end for Terry McGinnis.
Whoa!
Or the Smashing Pumpkins breaking their way back into our world here again.
Any excuse for me to talk about the Smashing Pumpkins. Let's go off for 3 hours now.
Let's.
But yeah, so we do.
I can organically plug something off of that. Anyway.
When I was a camp counselor, we would have pumpkins and.
No, actually, this is the book, but originally, I actually wrote to the Smashing Pumpkins lawyer and asked if I could use one of their lyrics for the title of my book or in my book. And they were very nice. And then I think once they realized that, like, I was a complete amateur in the world, just ghosted me entirely.
Oh, wow. Come on.
Man.
If anything, that's better. Right?
Yeah. So enjoy my book, which is titled The Post Road, and not, it's something with the headlights line. But anyway.
I was terrified for a second there. I was going to use the end as the beginning as the end as the beginning. It's like, we should have had you on for the song when we did it like 2 seasons ago. Oh,
Back in time.
But yeah, well, speaking about
The
back in
end
time,
of the beginning would have been like a fitting title for your book. When I think transitions and graduation.
It's all good. But yeah, no, that's okay. I'll just take my moment to swoon over Batgirl and everything's fine. and / Barbara Gordon, who's a librarian and a hero. And it's wonderful.
That's yeah. It's all true. It's all true. Here's the thing, though, because we are in the last gasp here of the flashback, and I've got a couple of little cleanup things that I just wanted to bring up because, like, we have to cover them now because otherwise we've missed that chunk. One is, of course, that Tara Strong voiced Batgirl when she was younger, and then Angie Harmon here is doing older Barbara. And I was like, oh yeah, there must be a big age difference between these two actresses. That's why they didn't just ask Tara Strong to like do a deeper voice or something like that. These two women are the same age. Angie Harmon and Tara Strong are both currently 51 years old. So it's just very much like, I don't know if that's like a slap in the face to Tara Strong being like, oh, you couldn't do an older Barbara. Or if it's more of a slap in the face to Angie Harmon to be like, oh, you sound like you're like 60. Yeah, so that works out great.
That's harsh, isn't it?
But I wonder, it does make it easier for, the casual fan like me dropping in to be like, okay, this is the flashback voice. This is the Batgirl voice. And they're credited, because I got really confused when I first looked it up and there were two people listed under Barbara Gordon. And I think the way I think IMDb does it based off the credits at the end of the movie, and it's different. It's like there is the Barbara Gordon voice and there is the voice of Batgirl, and never the two shall meet.
yeah.
But Kevin Conroy is still Bruce Wayne, even as like.
Well, that's because he's Kevin Conroy and a magical person.
Right.
I have seen complaints online actually since like looking into all the different, because it's not only a Tara Strong, Angie Harmon thing. Angie Harmon is replacing Stockard Channing, who voiced Barbara on the show.
Oh, that's right.
And Tara Strong at this point is replacing two other actresses who played Batgirl. And apparently it's a bone of contention in the fan base, because people are like, you can never get emotionally connected to Batgirl because every time she sounds different. Whereas everyone else, you're kind of like, that's the voice of Robin. That's the voice of Batman. That's what the Joker sounds like. That's what the Mad Hatter sounds like. And then every time Batgirl shows up, you're like, who is it this week? And what is their interpretation of the part going to be like and stuff? And yeah, apparently a lot of people have they really preferred Stockard Channing. Not a lot of kind words to say about Angie Harmon, unfortunately. Which is a shame, because he does a perfectly good job here. But
yeah, absolutely. I was going to say, we'll say kind words. This is fine.
Yes.
Finally, the time has come.
You can always trust Tierney for some kind words.
Well, we need... I like Barbara Gordon. At this point, we need a grown-up. She steps up. Bruce Wayne is incapacitated. Here's our grown-up. Just sliding right into the chair to keep us on track.
And I like it storytelling-wise that this is the future for Barbara Gordon, that she becomes police commissioner, and it like negates some of the like continuity that I hate from Barbara Gordon's life, which is great. And then it's also kind of cool because you have somebody in the Commissioner Gordon role who is a former insider with the Bat family. Yeah. So they know how Batman operates.
It's just so weird, though, because we're coming out of a flashback where we're so horrified that the Joker turned like a young person into like an identical version of himself. And yet grown Barbara Gordon is just an identical version of her dad. Like, she's same job, just looks exactly like him. Like, you add on a mustache, it's the same person. It's the exact same person.
I think I've mentioned this before. I love the way in her design they were like, just take his face and feminize it a little bit. A little bit. 5% maybe.
At least being a police commissioner, you have like health care and a pension. You don't get any of that if you get made into a mini Joker.
Yeah.
I wonder if Batman offers that, though. Does Batman offer that to anyone working with him? Does he have like a health plan?
You think it would come in handy because the amount of people.
I was going to say, is he just so rich that it's not a problem?
I think
his
maybe,
health plan is Alfred will stitch you up after you get the crap knocked out of you.
Yeah.
He can do anything.
Well, it's going to be like when they mention, like, in the chunk, when, like, so Leslie Tompkins had to come in and, like, spent a year bringing this kid back to sanity. And it's just like, well, is the kid insured? Like, Bruce, is this kid legally now under your insurance plan, or like, are you going to be paying? I was like, well, we're friends though, Leslie. I was like, yeah, we're friends. I'm not doing this for free though, man. This is going to take like a year of my time. Like, are you crazy? I'm not going to juggle this with other stuff. Like, the kid got turned into a Joker, for Christ's sake. This is a long-term project for me now.
All right, question. Are we going full spoilers or no?
Oh, yeah. Oh, no. The cat's out of the bag in terms of all these things.
Yeah, don't worry about it. It was going to be too complicated not to.
Because you bring up he needed a year of intensive therapy, and there's a much darker direction than they could have gone with how Robin became the Joker than this, like, weird sci-fi. He figured out the most amazing technology of humankind that you can imprint your consciousness on a tiny little, microscopic chip and then override somebody's brain and then take over their... I mean, that would change the course of human history if you invented that.
It's quite a big deal. And it doesn't
They
really
could
get
have
discussed.
just been like, he wasn't really fully healed
Yeah.
and he regressed, and so he became the Joker again. You
Yeah.
don't need a magic microchip.
I think the whole show, Batman Beyond, was so based on Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and the way that Buffy was always like, well, it's all a metaphor, isn't it? So the vampires are your problems in high school, and beer turning people into cavemen is like it's a sci-fi construct, but it's also basically like, well, it's a metaphor for the fact that beer turns people into idiots. And
It's
stuff
very
like that.
subtle.
I also think, and I know it's not the 90s for this movie, but it emotionally is. And I think part of that is just we were really excited about the idea of magical microchips because, Sharv, when you held up your little fingers, I immediately flashed to the movie The Saint when he drops the microchip and goes, Butterfingers. And I just, for people who remember the Val Kilmer movie, The Saint, they just got very excited that I mentioned that. And there is something about the idea like, a magical microchip that you can put your whole person on. Yeah, no, that's totally something we'll be able to do someday.
Yeah, in the near future.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Should have, of course, mentioned like, Val Kilmer and the Saint wouldn't have any affiliation with this show, Val Kilmer. We wouldn't have talked about him at all in the past.
Yeah,
We
no.
still need to cover the Saint at some point.
We do need to go in and cover the Saint actually at some point. Yeah, so
I think we've been talking about it for years.
I volunteer as tribute for her guest on that show. 'Cause I watched that movie. I don't even know how many times in high school.
Oh, there you go. The bonus episode incoming then on the Saint sometime down the line here.
But yeah.
Next week. No, maybe not.
But yeah, I do think I liked when we meet Tim Drake here, where he's just like, I'm out of it. Like, and it's so funny because he's such a vet where he's like, that training never goes. I knew you were coming a mile away, kid. Like, you can't get one up on me. But then also very much just like, please just let me do my job and leave me alone.
Again, though, that's the whole thing. Like, because you can take the little microchip thing as just being a metaphor that, like, it's for the sci-fi purposes, we have to go like the Joker's imprinted on him through this little microscope thing. But that's more like, it's more of a metaphor for the fact that like trauma will stay with people their entire lives. So things that happen to you as a child can warp you into like, the thing that could, people who were abused as children can grow up to be abusers, things like that. And then even something like that, though, it's just like a nice little mirroring of Tim being like, yeah, that training never goes away. So it's like that training that Bruce imprinted on me. Like, that's still in me as well. So, the Joker and Batman, not so different in these circumstances. Because, like, well, why was I in that scenario in the first place? Because Bruce Wayne let me be Robin, basically. And that's, so it's like the tale been messed up by your two dads, basically. Like, the Joker turned me into his kid. I was already Batman's kid. And they both really messed up in doing that, I guess.
Mommy, Daddy, stop fighting.
Oh, no.
One thing I do want to say, though, because it only just occurred to me, actually, is that when we do, like, the beginning of this chunk and when we had, like, in the previous chunk, Joker Tim, Jay Jr., there was something about the way he was dressed the whole time. Because they obviously has him in the Joker suit, but then puts him in short pants. Because that's kind of like, it's like a... kids just wear shorts. That's the joke, I guess.
Yeah.
But the whole time I was like, he reminds me of somebody, though. Like, I was like, it's not Angus Young from AC/DC. And I only just hit on it this week. It's like, he looks like Eddie Munster. Like,
yeah.
I think they might be
Okay.
deliberately trying to make him look a bit because the monsters, because their whole Joker and Harley's whole thing is like, we're going to be a family, but they're a family of monsters. And the monsters were a family, and like the Joker and Harley were going for this like 1950s, 60s wholesome family thing. And the monsters, their whole thing was like, it was a wholesome family show from the 60s about a family of monsters and stuff. And so I just thought of it because I discovered this week that Butch Patrick, who played Eddie Munster in the 80s, did a song called Whatever Happened to Eddie, and it's awful. It's, it's just the theme tune to the Munsters, but the chorus is all like, whatever happened to Eddie? I'm the kid from Mockingbird Lane. And just him, he can't sing. He can play bass pretty well, but that's about it. But the weird thing about that, too, is that like I watched that, I was like, oh, it's so awful. I have to watch it like 50 times and become obsessed with it. And I mentioned it to our friend Ash, who's like a big horror guy, and is really into like kitsch kind of stuff. I was like, you probably know about this, but... And he's like, yeah, I did know about that. Have you heard the B-side?
Oh.
And I was like, no. It's like, oh, there's a B-side called Little Monsters. And he sent it to me. And the B-side's amazing. Like, it's like an Oingo Boingo song. It's like a really well-written, well-performed 80s new wave song.
And is he singing again?
It's him, yeah. It's Butch Patrick. It's like, oh, so this should have been the single. This would have been the one that like people would have pricked up their ears to. Pricked up their pointy ears.
But he was obviously working through some stuff with that.
Yeah.
Plus, like, I imagine the other one, okay, you don't like it, but I imagine that the premise of it is what draws people in to buy the single, and then they hear the B-side, and it's like, oh.
You haven't heard how bad this song was, so John.
You were selling it to me, to be honest. I want to hear it right now.
I'll be so like in the meantime, between this and Tim Drake becoming like a satellite engineer, he also released a song called "Whatever Happened to Robin."
Oh yeah,
but it didn't track with people because people didn't know that he was Robin. So they're like, "This was some random asshole singing about being Robin all of a sudden."
I like the way just before you sort of see him as an engineer as well, you get them discussing about what happened. And it turns out Bruce forbade Tim to ever be Robin again. And I couldn't help but be like, well, yeah, like, I get it. The kid was really messed up. Everything you do is messing people up. Don't let anyone else get involved, man.
The kind of casualness they refer to, like, oh, he had to forbade him, like he would want to come back.
Yeah.
And then also later on, Tim Drake's just like, Bruce was probably doing me a favor by not. I was like, probably doing you a favor. Look what happened to you, kid. Jesus Christ.
No, it's insane. It's like nobody seems to care.
It's just like, oh, a minor year of therapy here and there. What does it matter?
As someone who watched Titans, I very much enjoyed that Nightwing guy. He's got some messed up stories, and I'm like, yes, he does.
Oh no, I'll save that for a little bit later because I delved it. One of the great mysteries of Batman Beyond is whatever happened to Nightwing.
Nice.
he released a single called "Whatever Happened to Nightwing" is what happened.
I'm in.
But I'm like, there is comic continuity. I'm going to get into, but like before we, one other thing I do want to mention though, referencing back, we're kind of all over the place in this chunk, I guess, but not that it matters really. Yeah. But last chunk as well, they did also mention that they had to bury the Joker's body, like in deep within Arkham, and then in this chunk they mentioned like, oh, they never. Barbara's very casually just like, oh, we never found Harley's body, but I doubt she'll be causing trouble. It's like, you doubt? It's like, if there's a chance she's out there, then you have to assume that it's going to be Harley Quinn. Because like, oh, we never found her body, but it's probably not her. It's like, the Joker's back from the dead. What the hell do you think anything's possible?
Well, that's another thing they don't seem to care about. Like Barbara, says, we didn't find her body, but she also seems fully aware that she's probably alive because she concedes that, like, if she's alive, she's probably not starting trouble now.
Yes, I doubt she'd be starting trouble now. Like, it's really like, no, she wouldn't have it in her. It's like,
too old.
This has been 40 years or whatever.
Now
is
that
she
you bring
covering
it up,
for
so
Barbara?
we know that. Yeah, I was going to say the same thing, Tierney. Is she covering?
Do she and Harley like get together every few months?
Oh,
and have a book
Harley's
club that's really
reformed
drinking
now.
wine,
girls' night,
and have girls' night and hang out, and so she knows it's not her.
Yeah.
And then I would like that if it turned out at the end when we do see Harley, if Barbara met up, they were like, "Oh, hey, hey, HQ," or something. Just like, "Oh, how's it going, Babs?" And they just walk off together. I'll be like, "Yeah, I'll take it." And she's like, "I could never tell Bruce because he just like he never lets things go, so he would never accept me being friends with Harley Quinn." But like, nah.
Or more
that's
than
my
friends.
headcanon now.
Have Barbara
I'm
and
also
Harley
going to add
ever
that
been
they're
roommates?
girlfriends now because Happy Pride.
Yeah, that's where my brain went. I was like, is she covering for her girl? Or maybe they're not together now, but they were at one point, and so they never really truly leave each other's lives. And I love it.
I
Anyway,
think there was a thing in the Harley Quinn TV show where sometimes that's very focused on Harley and Ivy, but there's episodes where they go to university.
there's
and
thoughts.
And there's Barbara's there as well, but also not really because she's voiced by Kaylee Cuoco's little sister, so I don't think they would never have Harley and Barbara have a romantic entanglement in that show because it'd be too weird for the actresses, I guess. But
Yeah.
one thing I did want to bring up as well, though, just in regard to burying the Joker's body, is that obviously before they made this, although I guess they would have been in production of season 2 when this was being made. But like in season 2, episode 3, the episode Joyride, the Jokers, different Jokers than they're in this chunk, but they steal like a military vehicle and go on a joyride, and Batman has to stop them. But they're like initiating a new one, and one of the things is like, oh, you have to go down this tunnel. As they shine the light down the tunnel, we see a skeleton, and it's got a little boutonniere and a thing of like purple material on its shoulder, and the implication there would be like that's the body of the Joker, which is weird because then they're like, do the Jokers know that that's there, or are they just like, oh, coincidentally it also happens to be there? And then also there was in fact a deleted scene that didn't even make it to, like, it was storyboarded but never made it to animation in this, where just after Bruce is forbidden Terry from being Batman and before the attack in the club, there was going to be a scene where Bruce would go to the guts of Arkham Asylum to see if the Joker's body was still there. And he would go into like the operating table or the operating theater, and Terry's following him because he's trying to be a good detective. And then Bruce comes in and he looks up and someone's strung up the decomposing body of the Joker and just written a note saying, "I know" on it. And Bruce freaks out because it's just like the Joker's half face smiling at him and this dead body there. And it would have been it would have been too intense, but it also would have been a good setup scene because it would have been before the flashback.
Yeah.
So when Bruce goes into this operating theater, when the time it gets to the flashback, when he goes to the operating theater, you know, like, oh, something big's gonna happen here because he went through it in that previous scene and stuff.
Yeah. And I guess I'm biased by not having watched the show live as you did, Jarf, because I kept being told, like, oh, this is too intense, this is too intense. And again, it's because I watch Titans. It's because I watch those. I don't think superhero movies are for kids unless specifically told, this is Teen Titans, go and it's fine. You know, if you told me there is an R version of this movie with that scene, I would not bat an eye. I would just be like, yeah, okay, sure. There's an animated R movie because I watch Harley Quinn. Like, there are no rules. Like, this is fine. I would never assume based on what the IP is that I know what audience it's for.
Exactly. Yeah.
So yeah, it was just like, yeah, no, it's fine. You know, I was like, yeah, no, this is fine. It's PG-13. Like, yeah.
Well, that's actually a question for you, though, Jarf. Like, as you were watching, like, when did you first see the film? And do you remember it having like a gut reaction of like, Jesus Christ, like, what are they doing to this poor kid?
Not really, because I'm old enough that I was an adult when this cartoon was on Saturday mornings. It was me reminiscing about watching Saturday morning cartoons as a kid.
Yeah.
So I saw this movie around the same time that I saw the cartoons. And I just wrote off the like slightly edgier content to it being a movie rather than it being on. But it didn't feel like a jarring change in the universe. It was more just like, oh, you know, this is instead of me seeing this on the WB Saturday mornings, like I had to get a DVD from Blockbuster of it. And it's like, okay, they can go a little bit more badass. That's cool. But it still felt like the same Batman Beyond. And even with edgier moments, most of the action is Looney Tunes.
Yeah.
It's very like you're fighting on a hovercraft and then like, oh, look out, there's a flagpole. Boing, 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 boing. You're like flipping around the flag. So, you know.
Well, we're going to get, there's like implied going to be sexy time, but nothing really happened. Someone's just wearing a short skirt. It's fine. Like, yeah, it's very all like implied, you know, and I was reading the whole controversy about like, oh, it was after Columbine and they had to change things. And I'm just like, you know, I'm sure in the heat of the moment that felt very important, but now, you know, all these years later, it's like, yeah, it's fine.
Yeah, I never understand that. Like, there's an even worse example of, like, The Simpsons won't show that episode that features the World Trade Center. And it's not even like anything bad happens to it. It's just like, in a lot of countries, you just can't watch it anymore. It's not on Disney.
It was weird in Ireland. The Irish stations would show it no problem. But like Channel 4, where The Simpsons is shown on English TV, would never. Yeah, I think they do now, but they didn't for like a long time. So it was always like this like weird hidden episode that Ireland has, where like they go to New York and it's a really good episode.
It's so strange because like what's wrong with it just being in there? You know, and like some movies would erase it.
Maybe people are like, oh, it's you know, it's sensitive. People might be sensitive to seeing it or whatever.
Which is ridiculous because do you know I live in a New York suburb. I actually saw it. We went down to we got released from school early, went down to the beach and watched the smoke. We could see the smoke from Manhattan. People were going and like trying to donate blood and people were finding their parents and the whole 9 yards. I have had a worse reaction. Whatever movie it is where it's Ben Affleck hugging that little girl as the buildings fall around them.
Oh, yeah.
I actually had, like, I could feel in my body, like, tensing up. I was so upset at that scene. I don't care about seeing the towers in the background. Well, that's the problem. All those superhero ones kind of blur together.
Romantic comedy set in New York from the 90s has a shot of the New York skyline where you can see the Twin Towers.
And it's not like triggering to see the Twin Towers.
It's just like, oh, right. Whoa, yeah, they used to be there.
If anything, it's worse to pretend they weren't there, right?
I think it's weird, though, that they go like, oh, people might be too sensitive to that. But one of the big things that people did take away, like Tierney, what you're saying, like I think the movie you're talking about there is Batman versus Superman.
Okay, good.
And but I remember when War of the Worlds came out, like the Steven Spielberg one of the big things were like, oh yeah, everyone's covered in dust and stuff because we had seen that in the news previously, so we knew what this type of thing looked like because we'd seen it from all the 9/11 footage. So Spielberg's like, oh yeah, I'm going to put that in because that's more realistic now. And it's like, yeah, but people are still sensitive to seeing just the towers by themselves, and like they can't have that Spider-Man trailer and stuff because it featured the two towers and stuff.
That was ridiculous.
It's crazy.
Yeah. And should we do a new Blu-ray release of Made in Manhattan and digitally edit out the Twin Towers?
Didn't they take? I think because you used to always see it in the intro to The Sopranos as well, and I think the next season they had to go like, no, you can't. We have to edit that out now. It has to be a different shot. You can't see them in the background anymore.
It's very strange. I never understand the way censorship works. I understand sometimes it might be necessary for certain things, but they seem to just censor random stuff.
There's times when it made sense. You mentioned Buffy earlier, and there is the episode of Buffy that they didn't air in real time.
Oh, yeah.
Because it was the, like, telepathy episode, and somebody overhears a kid is gonna do a school shooting, and apparently it was gonna release like very, very close to a school shooting. Yeah. So they were like,
I
maybe
understand.
Let's not.
I was one of those people who, honestly, at the beginning of which Star Wars show is it with the school shooting, and
Obi-Wan.
Obi-Wan. Yeah. I watched that and I was like, you know, it wouldn't have done any harm to throw up a placard before it started. Like, I didn't think they needed to reshoot it or remove the scene or anything, but I was like, you know, I could have done with 2 sentences of type in the blue font and like then moved on with my life. Like, and that was more like a little warning. It would have been nice to like have a heads up, but yeah, it's just weird. Like, because things can be addressed and things can be time sensitive. But again, it's what is the audience for this? And this is a cartoon Batman movie. Like, what are we doing here, guys? It's fine.
I think one of the weird, again, this is jumping around the chunk, but like one of the things they re-edited, like when they, obviously pulled it, and then they're like, okay, so we're taking out that death and we're redoing a bunch of stuff, and we're gonna like, oh, the Joker doesn't die that way, etc., etc. Mm-hmm. One of the things they went back and edited in was when Terry's driving around the Batmobile jet thing. Originally, actually in this version, you'll notice he's not wearing a seatbelt. But in the cut version that was first released, he did have a seatbelt. Because and apparently it was a studio note of like, he's not visibly like strapped in there.
That is adorable.
Yeah. And so now if you'll see the other one that he's got like two straps holding him down in the cut version, whereas this one he's just like going commando, swaggering all over the city without a seatbelt.
Safety first.
If Adam West saw that, he would have had a goddamn heart attack. Like, if Adam West Batman saw Robin not wearing a seatbelt, he would have flipped his goddamn lid.
I love it. Sharf, you're not wearing a seatbelt. Oh no, you can escape at any moment. Quick, someone animate a seatbelt on that man.
I kind of like that. That's cute. That's a good sort of use of censorship because it's not taking anything away. It's just like, you know what, you could maybe make an improvement here.
Yeah. But also, so in pursuing through the chunk, we do of course get Barbara mentioning like, Bruce forbade Tim from becoming Robin ever again, and then you find out like, it's because his son Damian Wayne had already taken over as Robin, so he couldn't have two.
I've already got one.
Yeah, and Terry's just like, so what happened to Damian Wayne? Oh, there was a heartbreaker. Is there any story involved with this guy? Like, Terry should really be listening to all this stuff, but like, did anyone get out of this relationship with Bruce Wayne? Okay. Like,
I think sadly the answer to that is no.
No. Barbara's weirdly like the only one. Barbara, who's like in the comics classically like the most scathed because of all the Oracle stuff. She's the only one who was like, yeah, thankfully I was okay. Until you read in the continuity comics and you find out like, oh no, some messed up stuff really happened as well.
That Instagram account, the red flag guy, just runs onto the screen and starts waving the red flag back and forth in Terry's face.
For example, like when they are talking about but she does mention like, oh, hey, look up Nightwing. Has he got some stories? Which I like the way that she had to say like, look up Nightwing instead of look up Dick, because then it could have been. It's just like, that line doesn't sound good.
Yeah, that does sound a bit. Let's be honest, we've been making jokes about it.
I mean, like, we have been since Batman Forever. So.
I told you my grandfather's name, right? Oh no! Oh no! My poor grandmother.
We need to know. Come on.
My grandfather is Richard J. Steele. That man's name.
Amazing.
That man's name was Dick Steele.
That's the best name ever.
And someone had to take her aside when they got engaged, and she was telling like, "I just love my dick," and they were like, "Martha, you can't say that."
Dick Steele.
I love my Dick
name
Steele.
In Spy Hard?
Don't slut shame your grandma.
I'm sure that's his name in Spy Hard. That's Leslie Nielsen's character, isn't it?
I remember that came up in the tail end of us recording Joe versus the Minute, and I was like, how am I just learning this now?
Love it.
Not nearly as cool a guy as the name would imply.
Oh. I bet secretly it was cool.
I've looked it up. You're right. Leslie Nielsen's character in Spy Hard is called Agent Dick Steele. Oh, wow. Are you sure, though, that your grandfather didn't know Leslie Nielsen? He was like, oh, no, it wasn't supposed to be a joke. It was supposed to be a loving tribute to my friend.
I have questions, because he did live all over the country, including Southern California, so he could have run into him there.
Holy moly.
He did live in Maryland and work in DC, so someone working on the story could have been like, what's the best spy name ever?
There you go. Spy Hard is based on his life.
I had no idea.
I think I'm the only defender of that movie. It turns out the internet thinks it's terrible. I'm like, what are you talking about? It's a classic.
Yeah. You probably saw it when you were 10, John. I think that's why it's a classic.
It very well could. Plus, it has Weird Al doing the song. What more do you want?
Oh, that's right. Yeah, that was actually the best part of it, as I recall. So, they had Weird Al doing a Bond theme at the start. It's like, that's genius. That's the best idea ever.
It's amazing.
Oh. But no, in reference to Nightwing, of course, as mentioned earlier in the episode too, that like the mystery of what happened to Dick Grayson never addressed in the show. They never brought up in the continuity of like the Tim Dini-verse what actually happened to Dick Grayson. But in 2010, of course, then some comics came along to explain everything. And it's not great. The way, though, the Barbara's very nonchalantly kind of going like, oh, Nightwing, oh, he could tell you some stories. And you're like, Barbara, in the comic continuity, you had an affair with Bruce Wayne, got pregnant, and then lost the baby, and that's why he doesn't talk to Bruce anymore. Like, that's part of, like, because Bruce Timm has a real thing about, like, oh, Barbara and Bruce are, like, a thing. We talked about it way back when we did Batman and Robin, when we had, a version of Barbara Gordon there. And no fan likes this. Everybody's upset about it. Bruce Timm, though, is very like, no, they belong together. It's like, no, they don't, you weirdo. What are you doing? And he put in the sex scene between them in the Killing Joke. He added in a sex scene of Barbara.
The animated Killing Joke. I didn't think I could hate the Killing Joke more. And then he added that. And I was like, you did it. You made me hate it more.
I don't think I've ever heard anyone go, oh, that was a good addition.
No. And then, but yeah, so for Barbara to be like, oh, Dick could tell you some stories. And it's like, she said that? Did she tell you what happened between us? Jesus Christ. But of course, no, there is a great episode where I think, what's it called? Old Wounds. You find out what happened, why Dick Grayson left to become Nightwing. And it's all down to like a lot of stuff between him and Bruce. But the big thing is that Bruce was violently interrogating a suspect in front of his family. Like his little kid was there, and Dick looked at like the little boy crying, and he was just like, no, I can't deal with this anymore. And like it's a good call too, because it's like, Bruce, isn't your whole thing about like being a traumatized kid, like and seeing someone when they're little that they'll never forget, and you're just doing that to this kid.
People.
Yes.
Tying all back in that, like Tim Drake was it a microchip, or was it just all the damage the Joker did to him that just never went away years later?
Turns out there isn't a microchip; it's all made up.
Yeah.
That actually would be a good twist. I'd like that.
But then it turns out also in that episode that Bruce has known the entire time that Barbara is Batgirl, because Dick and Barbara are a couple. Even though at one point in that episode, he nips off out of a date to say, oh, I promised my housemates I'd help them clean out the fridge. And it's like, how's that a good thing to tell your girlfriend, man? You're dumping her to go do that? Are you nuts?
Imagine that as your excuse. That'd be an instant dumping right there.
Yeah.
It's not even anything, like, important.
But yeah, and then Dick then find out later that, like, oh, no, Barbara now knows that Bruce is Batman because he told her. And then he's just like, oh, yeah, by the way, I've also known that your girlfriend was Batgirl this entire time, and I didn't tell you. And Dick's just like, why didn't you tell me? He's like, well, it wasn't my place to say, And then he's just like, no, I can't trust Bruce. He's too violent, he's too extreme, et cetera, et cetera. And so that's why Dick left to become Nightwing. And then, so that's established in the cartoons.
And then everything was fine for him.
No. In the Batman Beyond comics, Hush Beyond, they finally get around to what happened to Dick. And basically it's that in that story, there's a new version of Hush running around, Hush 2.0. He's killing villains, like in the manner of other villains. So he'll kill, like, say, like Killer Croc, but with like an umbrella, so it looks like, the Penguin did it, that kind of thing.
I like it, I'm into it.
Eventually then, Terry goes to Tim Drake as post, this film, so he knows Tim Drake's relationship with Bruce and stuff like that. And then Tim's was like, well, who you might want to talk to is Dick Grayson. And if we track down Dick, and he's got an eye patch, and he's all grizzled and stuff, and it turns out he had to retire from being Nightwing because he was riddled with bullets by a Batman villain. Guess which villain it was? Which villain is it? Always the one who does the worst things to Batman's friends. It was, of course, the Joker.
We could have been watching Return of the Jedi and talking about Ewoks this whole time, but no. Always the Joker.
I was thinking the Riddler because he said he riddled him with bullets.
That would have been a good twist.
No, but no. I guess I know they have to make the Joker the worst of the worst, but does it always have to be him? Can it not be somebody else just every once in a while to be like, yeah, so the Joker he's done this to Tim Drake. He shot Barbara Gordon in the spine once. He he beat Jason Todd to death, and also in this continuity, he nearly killed Dick Grayson as well. And they had to, so just say one time it was like, yeah, it was Two-Face who did it, or
no, but you have to understand how evil he is, Niall. How evil.
Yeah, it just so it really bugged me. It's like, yeah, the Joker again. And at one point you think like, well, in the continuity of this film, would Bruce not also be like, yeah, so he messed up 2 of my Robins, I guess. He did.
It's just the problem where, like, one great writer, Alan Moore, writes an edgy story that is, like, exploring what would happen if a villain pushed things to extremes, and then everyone treats that as canon. Like, oh, right, Joker is the one who pushes things beyond the extremes.
Yes.
And so they copy that, and it's just diminishing returns every time.
Rather than the whole point of like, well, you can do what you want to do with the character.
Right.
Although I do like with this
but
character...
I'm sorry, I have to bounce.
Yeah,
I told you to draw a seatbelt on that man.
It's too late. I've been flown out of the podcast.
No
But
problem,
this has been
Jeff.
so fun. Thank you so much.
Oh, no, you're welcome anytime. Hopefully we can keep you for longer next time.
Yeah, well, thank you. We knew you didn't have, hours with us.
Jarek, do you want me to plug
anything?
anything other than Dazed and Confused? Is that your main one?
Niall, you should plug Dream Operators because you're a guest.
Yes,
Okay.
I will do. We'll save that. We'll deal with all that at the end. But yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Just wanted to make sure.
Peace.
Bye. All right.
Something I like with this Robin as well. He's not Robin anymore, but he calls the Robin suit stupid, and he says that costumes and capes were kids stuff. Not only that's harsh, that's like a total Bruce Wayne burn right there. But also calling it stupid. Really?
To be fair, though, the Robin suit usually is pretty stupid. Though.
Yeah, I don't think it's the best choice.
Kid stuff, though? Okay, maybe the costume, like the design is, but not the concept of what he's doing. He seems to think the whole idea is ridiculous and like, nah.
Yeah, because he's kind of going in for, like, thinking about the way he used to think about it. Like we saw at the beginning of the flashback where... he heard a scream and he's like, well, it's hero time. And he's just like, hey, this is just fun for me. And then he's like, it was kid stuff. It's like, yeah, it was also horrifically traumatizing.
Yeah,
and like life or death stuff as well, man.
Yeah. I think he just is trying to, it's one of those things where like, if you say it enough times, maybe you'll start believing it yourself.
That's it. Yeah, he's convincing himself, like, nah, that was just some stupid thing I did when I was young.
Yeah. And there still seems to be this thing in the air where it's like, oh, he would have come back. I would have been like, Bruce would be like,
Good point.
Apparently Bruce was just like, no, not a chance in hell that you're ever going to do. You think like even when Terry was going to become Batman, Bruce would have been like, well, I guess to be fair, at the beginning of the show, he was hesitant. But he should have been more emphatically going, no, this is literally the worst. Like, I can't ever let this happen to anyone again, ever. I should be like building robots or something to go and deal with this instead. But
I wonder if it's the age too. Like when you're a kid and this is all you know, like that's hard to give up.
That's true. Yeah.
Oh, actually,
So
I
that's
forgot
why
to.
relatively things have worked out. He's got a good job. He has healthcare and a pension, probably.
He's got a
that's right,
family.
too.
He mentions a wife and kids.
Oh, that's a big one too. Just be like, oh yeah, he's married with a couple of kids, and Terry would be like, and just cuts to him like beating up the kids, going like, tell me everything you know about this guy.
No.
Oh, that would be incredible.
Eric
Now
Matthews
talk.
would never.
I think that's the thing. Like Terry wouldn't, but if it was Bruce Wayne, like Bruce overheard that, and he's already like halfway down the street to Tim Drake's house. Like, where's his wife?
He's smashing their heads into the ground. Talk.
And again, Barbara's still like, oh, could be Harley Quinn, but I'm not going to look into that. Whereas Bruce is like, it's that goddamn 8-year-old of his. I know it is. Actually, I forgot to mention how the whole Hush thing in the continuity comics actually concludes as well, because it gets worse. Not only was Dick Grayson, one-eyed, and apparently after he got shot by the Joker, he was in like a coma for ages, and Bruce wouldn't go to see him because he was just, the emotional compromise of it all, et cetera, et cetera. And so Dick goes off and starts like an athletics club afterwards. And then, so this new Hush is going around. Eventually, Terry tracks him down, has a big confrontation, and it rips off his, Hush bandages or whatever, and reveals that the face underneath is Dick Grayson. But it's Dick Grayson with an eye, and Dick Grayson's missing an eye. And what it turns out is that Amanda Waller cloned Dick Grayson to be a replacement Batman should something ever happen to Bruce, which is in continuity to the end of the Batman Beyond, storyline in Justice League, where you find out that Terry is in fact a clone of Bruce Wayne. And it's all a plot line that everybody hates. And everyone's like, no, that's stupid. Don't do anything with that. And then they brought it back to be like, oh yeah, there's a clone of Dick Grayson running around who was Hush. And he was evil for some reason. They're just getting really stupid. And then Dick has to fight himself. There's a tale of two dicks going at it and whatnot. One-eyed Dick, old one-eyed Dick up against the other.
Jesus Christ. This is a family show.
Oh, and,
Is it though?
Well, allegedly.
It hasn't been since Michelle Pfeiffer got in that Catwoman outfit.
That was a very difficult season to keep PG.
That's okay. I still like self-censor because I've done different shows with different ratings and stuff. And it was like, I forget what it was, but I like self-censored and, said effing instead. And it was on Apocalypse Now Minute. And they were like, Tierney, pretty sure anyone listening to this show can handle the F word.
But in terms of little cultural references here, though, I liked in the scene of like Batman, and I also discovered a thing just this week as well that I hadn't caught before, and like doing notes and like looking into people on YouTube talking about Batman Beyond and the show and all the continuity and stuff.
No, be careful looking up videos like that.
I've only just noticed a lot of people refer to Terry as Batman Beyond, like that's his name.
No, sorry, he's Batman. Just call him Batman.
They'll be going on like, oh yeah, so now it's Hush versus Batman Beyond, and Batman Beyond gets the upper hand. Like, he's Batman. Like,
if you're calling him that,
hilarious.
I hate you. I hate you.
I just regret, though, we could have been calling Val Kilmer Batman Forever that whole season. Just been like, so Batman Forever goes and punches Two-Face.
The precedent
Okay, now
has
you've
been
won
set.
me over. Let's go back and re-record it, actually. I've changed my mind. Let's do it.
And so every time like Arnie shows up in Terminator 2, they're like, it's the Terminator 2.
Well, I have to admit, and we have a scene with the Jokers in this chunk, the Jokers, and I didn't know any of their names the entire time. And I was calling them by like Scarecrow and stuff, and it's just like, wait, no, that's not who that is. That's a different thing.
You know what,
but
though? This is your first watch. This might be your first watch, but you instantly have picked up on it. He is just Scarecrow. Not just in look. Like, everything about him's like, yeah, I just dig the Scarecrow.
Yeah.
And I talk like Christopher Walken for some reason.
It was something to find out that like he doesn't actually talk that way. He's just like, He's just like, eventually like, I just like taking things from other things and appropriating them for myself. So I like the voice, and so I did that, and I like the hat and stuff. So
we just went with it. Yeah, no, this little gang was very cartoonish in a way that the rest of the movie isn't. And then. Yeah, you think they're going to turn sinister, but they don't.
I'm not saying this is a diss, because I like them, but you're right. It's a bit strange sort of contrast of tones. But they're clearly like, they've made these to sort of, something for the kids, shift some toys.
Oh, yeah.
Which is fine. That's absolutely fine. There's no problem.
We'll have to because our toy expert is usually Neil Ricketson, so I'll save it in the tank for him. But I wonder if they sold DD toys, did they sell them together, or did you have to buy two?
Oh, that would be cruel.
And they're labeled as being different, but they just look the same.
Yeah, it's just like one's on the one side of the package and the other's on the other side of the package.
That's taking a page out of like George Lucas's book right there. He'd do that.
It's just
George
turtles.
Lucas would do that.
No, it's just up the turtles. It's like it's the same mold. It's just different paint. That's how you get away with it.
Yeah, genius. I remember actually as a kid when I collected Turtles toys, I had a lot of Donatellos that, for some reason, they would often make a Donatello a slightly different green to the others.
Yeah,
And I'm like, why?
yeah.
It was like a browner green. Like, why have you done that? He's not in the cartoon.
I never noticed that. So
They probably just tried to see how far can we push parents. It's like, no, they're noticing it's just the masks are different. But if we paint the bodies a slightly different shade of green, that makes them look different enough to justify them paying the money for.
I think you're right. I think that's what it is.
Yeah.
I mean, they've done it with Batman, where there are all these different Batman figures. And it's like he's got a bit of a different cape and a different gun. It's like, well, you could have just sold me the gun.
Nipple or no nipple is the only difference between Batman's I will recognize.
Hell yeah.
But no, a thing I did want to mention as well, though. Again, we're just all over the place.
I bring the chaos.
Yeah, that's what we want.
But I don't know if I was the only one who thought this, but like when I was going to call him Dick, when Tim is working at the satellite and we get a close up of the wiring and that little door flap, did that make either of you think of anything in particular?
The wiring and the door. Well,
No.
I bet it's something super obvious, but no. I mean, off the top of my head,
something
I didn't
related to Mark Hamill, who features in this film quite heavily.
Oh, his arm.
Oh, okay.
I didn't think of that. Yeah.
Yeah, it looks just like at the end of Empire Strikes Back when like the droid's working on Luke's new robot hand and he has a little flap.
If there were a few of them.
I had a weird thing as a kid where I was obsessed with seeing, in a non-gory way, how arms functioned. Right? Because you get that shot, and then you get like Terminator 2 again, where he peels the skin off, and you see all the bits moving and things. So I was always like staring down at my arm and like pressing bits, and like, can I make like my fingers move?
I think we talked about it because, of course, people don't know that me and John did a commentary for Terminator 2. You can access on our Patreon.
$2.
$2 worth it for that commentary alone.
Bargain.
Yeah. And I think we were just going like, why did he have to take off this whole arm skin?
Because it's cool.
It's just such an. I guess he was just like, it's a very extreme thing. But then afterwards, like, oh no, now I have no arm. I have no skin for my arm anymore.
He doesn't need the skin. He's going into the final battle. It's irrelevant.
Yeah, this is like, you could have just done like one finger or something. I guess it might be easier to like. I guess if you're going to be wearing a glove anyway, you might as well take off the whole arm. I suppose he's also trying to be like, that arm you saw in your lab. This is it. So actually, now I've talked myself around here. That actually makes total sense. Forget I said that.
You fool.
But also, because we're dealing here with Tim Drake now, and like there's just gone to such a seeing it happens. Everyone gets older, but just go from seeing him as a little kid to being like, oh yeah, old man Dean Stockwell. He's probably like stocky and he looks like a middle-aged man and stuff. And you're like, oh yeah, it happens to us all, I guess.
A middle-aged man before millennials.
Yeah. The big meme going around at the minute too is just like being 30 in 1980 you look like you're Tony Soprano, and then being 30 in 2024 you look like Timothée Chalamet. Like something's happening with people's aging.
It's true. Something's changed. I don't know what's going on.
Yeah. I would assume we're eating healthier, but I don't think we are.
I think it's the cigarettes and booze.
Well, actually, yeah. There you go. That might be.
I think I having studied World War II and like realized how much people were smoking. I mean, like you emotionally know, like, oh yeah, they smoked a lot more back then, and then you just realize. My favorite is in new movies, in Disney movies about the space program. Every time you see someone chewing gum in real life, they were smoking.
Oh.
Because they don't want to get the higher rating for showing smoking on screen, but they were constant. And so I love that they've just like, I don't know who decided at what level it was decided, but it's like chewing gum is the new, like, we don't want to show cigarettes in this film.
Interesting. They're very, very funny about showing smoking now. Like, not, even the villains. It's like, oh, no, they're not smoking. We can't have any cigarettes mentioned.
That's just make me think, because we had a big thing in Mask of the Phantasm last season where they could, so everyone, I remember freaking Salva Lester was like a goddamn chimney, just constantly smoking.
Which fits the vibe of the movie,
But yeah, I think in the show, you'd always, every time it would be a toothpick, or maybe even to gum chewing, like you're saying, Tierney. Like, they would have had something to convey the idea of smoking, but they couldn't actually show anyone smoking. Whereas, like, the opening scenes of the movie are like, there's ashtrays everywhere to imply that, like, yeah, these guys are smoking. They're smoking all the goddamn. But no, so actually, again, going from one Star Wars reference, then we get a shot of Tim Drake in the foreground with Batman in the background, and it's pre-Revenge of the Sith. But I saw that shot, and all I could think of is, like, Anakin, my allegiance is to the Republic, to democracy. if you are not with me, then you... It's the same shot. It's the same exact way of framing it and stuff.
Hell yeah.
So we'll obviously be able to talk about Dean Stockwell more as we go on. But now that the cat's out of the bag about, like, who he is and what's going, Tim Drake being, Joker Jr., all that stuff, et cetera, I can get into why they hired Dean Stockwell for this role in particular. Not just because he's obviously a very talented actor, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah,
Dean
but it's
Stockwell.
an odd choice.
Are you a big Dean Stockwell person, Tierney?
I wasn't. I looked up the cast and I immediately saw him and I was like, oh, that guy. But I did not know him, really recognize much stuff.
Not a Quantum Leap fan?
No, so that's the big thing that most people seem to be connecting, and I wasn't. So I was just kind of like, no, this seems fine. And I thought it was weird that they decided to do they wrote him a little get out of jail free card where it's like, oh, Tim didn't know what was happening when the Joker took over. Yeah. And that's why he's as horrified watching TV as everyone else. But it's like, at some point, don't you realize, even if you're so far in denial that you are the Joker, you would notice you're losing time. And wouldn't you start to suspect things and put things together? I don't know.
Gets into some Tyler Durden-y kind of territory there after a while. We're like, so when was the Joker, is he thinking he's sleeping when this is happening? Or hey, how's he not noticing that? He's like, he's got a wife and kids apparently. Are they not noticing that he's gone for most of the evening all the time now? He goes to work in the day, he comes back for dinner, and then he's gone for hours at a time. But yeah, Dean Stockwell, though, very famous his entire life. He's a Nepo baby, basically. Which is always weird when you see old people and you're like, yeah, Nepo baby over there. Or as well, someone in work during the week couldn't remember what the term was and kept saying narco baby.
I love that.
Is this the hilarious Muppet Babies version of Narcos or something? Narco babies?
Narco babies?
Muppet Babies would have done it.
Does Kermit as Pablo Escobar?
We need this in our lives.
But no, he was born in North Hollywood. His father was Harry Stockwell, who was an actor and a baritone singer, and his mother was Elizabeth, who was a vaudevillian actress. Because again, he's very old, Dean Stockwell. And then his father was actually the voice of the prince in Snow White. Disney's first ever feature film. So
that guy talks. Sorry,
I think it might be his singing voice. I guess maybe because I tried rewatching Snow White recently, and it's so boring. It's such a boring cartoon. I couldn't really make it through it.
I'm not a big fan of it. No.
Well, you got the Pinocchio. It's incredible. It's like, oh, here we go. Here's a film. But then Snow White, I just like, oh my god. Yeah.
There's bits of it. I mean, I like it overall, but you're right. To sit down and watch the movie is not an experience that I feel the need to replicate.
Yeah. But anyway, so over time, obviously his father working in the industry. Eventually, Dean just sort of whenever they need kids for something, they're like, oh, bring your kid in for this or whatever. Dean Stockwell eventually starts getting little bit parts and things here and there and becomes a flat out child actor. And one of the things he was in was a very famous anti-war film called The Boy with the Green Hair. And it was all about basically, they discover this little boy with a shaved head and he refuses to talk and stuff. And you find out that he eventually tells a story. The little boy's Dean Stockwell, and he is basically saying, like, yeah, I had a very loving family. My parents went away, and then eventually I discovered that they were killed at war, and I'm a war orphan, and that turned my hair green. And
right.
yeah, and there's bits where he like runs out, like, because everyone just starts picking on him because his hair is green, and so he runs out into the woods, and then he meets the ghosts of all these war orphans, and they're telling him like that, no, you must go back and tell your story. Your green hair will be a symbol of
I feel like they could have made fun of a little kid with gray hair, but anyway.
What's the age of Technicolor, Tierney? They're like, we can turn his hair green. This is incredible.
It probably was quite shocking to see visually, you know.
Well, see, if you actually watch because I watched the film during the week, it's only like 80 minutes, so it's a very quick dander through. But it's just like, yeah, that's a vibrant green color he's got going on. It's like every color pops in it.
I mean, people were shocked when the punks started doing it in the 70s, you know, so nothing had changed time-wise.
Was it like going on British TV and be like, is this a reference to the classic anti-war film, The Boy with the Green Hair?
That's exactly what it is, yes. That's what John Lydon was going for.
Yeah, Sid Vicious been like, oh yeah, I love that movie. But then eventually... at the end, you're like, because the kid's telling the story in flashback, and you're like, is his hair green? Is it not green? Is he okay? Is he going to go back? Et cetera, et cetera. So, little boy who's in a loving family whose parents are tragically taken away from him, and it completely alters him for the rest of his life. Very Batman-y. And 2, Tim Drake is a boy who had his hair dyed green by the Joker.
Oh, there you go.
And he grows up to be Dean Stockwell.
Everything's connected.
And I think that was their little joke. They were like, isn't that funny? Like, we got the boy with the green hair.
What
and his character played a boy with green hair, you know?
Jesus Christ.
I have to say, though, I'm a writer, and sometimes you make those little jokes for yourself. You do.
And you don't ever expect anyone else to figure it out. You don't want them to. You don't care.
They do things like there's episodes as well of the show where, like, the plot line will be the Mad Hatter is controlling monkeys with, mind control stuff. So he's got a giant ape going around, like breaking into banks or whatever. Bruce Timm has said he thinks this is the worst episode of the whole show as well. But it's actually not that bad. But like the Mad Hatter is voiced by Roddy McDowall, and at the end he gets beaten up by an ape, and you're like, Roddy McDowall was in Planet of the Apes.
It's incredible.
It's still going on. As of this recording, I don't know how it's going to play out, but the latest episode of Doctor Who has an actress named Susan Twist. That is her name. They cast her. That is her name. It is now a thing, and they even did a song called There's Always a Twist at the End. And it's like, oh, Susan Twist, it's a thing. And I'm like, that's just what her parents named her. Like, I don't understand how this has become a thing, but it is apparently a season-long arc that I assume will eventually be resolved.
That's because, she's an old woman who keeps popping up. They've mentioned that the Doctor has a granddaughter who was named Susan.
Yeah.
Way years ago. It's just like, if this isn't going to reveal anything, you are really taking the piss with this. Like, that's crazy.
I kind of hope it doesn't now, just to annoy people.
I don't know if she just came in and auditioned for a random part, and like the showrunner was just like, "Wait a minute, what's her name?"
At what point did Russell T Davies make this decision? I need to know.
Yeah. It'll be it's gonna be, but then that's like the most signpostage ever. It's to be like, the actress's name is literally Susan Twist. Who do you think she's gonna turn out to be? But yeah.
Anyway, back to this sci-fi.
And back on the boat. We've gone all over the place, haven't we?
That's right.
That was, of course, another big, a big cut they made is the. We call him Jordan Pryce, Mark Hamill, the other role.
I always forget his name. Most of my notes here are going, it's that guy. And then I remembered his name at the end.
I think even worked into the outro the term pricey yacht. And I'm wondering I wonder even if our listeners will remember that his name is Jordan Pryce.
No, they're not going to remember.
Joke is supposed to be.
It's not important.
But yeah, when he comes in and we get that very, very sensual shot of one of the DD's legs.
Mm-hmm. He doesn't know it's a DD yet, though.
He doesn't know it's a DD. He thinks it's his girlfriend. But it's there's crop top going on. There's some booty shorts, etc., etc.
Oh, I hope you're going to say what I've written. Go.
But no, this was a thing. This was cut from the movie as well
okay,
originally, and it just had a very abrupt cut to just like in the middle of the scene. It just cut to like Jordan Pryce being like, "Oh, the Jokers are in this room for some reason." And you're like,
See, I think you need this shot, and I don't say that as a dirty pervert. I think you need this shot to establish really what's going on, and I think it's vague enough that kids wouldn't. It's not inappropriate for kids. You're not seeing too much. She just wears that outfit all the time anyway.
Yeah.
It's not like she's put on lingerie or something.
I think that there's something though. It's the lighting and it's the pose, the way she's lying on a very sensual.
Yeah, but we're
Children-
grown-ups. Yeah, we get it.
Would kids look at that and be like, think it's they wouldn't know it is sexy, a sexy pose, would they?
But at the same time, would kids have looked at Terry McGinnis without a visible seatbelt and been like, Batman Beyond doesn't wear a seatbelt, so I'm not going to wear a seatbelt because I'm going to be like Batman Beyond.
That's very true. Yeah.
And all the parents are like, he's just called Batman. What are you calling him Batman Beyond all the time? You sound like a goddamn idiot.
I love
Gotta
it
raise
as
your
well.
kids right.
When he comes in and he sees her and he talks about, he's got caviar, soft music, charming company. All I could think of was The Room.
Like,
Was it the candles, the music, the sexy dress? What's going on?
Amazing if he came in as like, Dee Dee, the candles, the music, the sexy dress. What's going on here?
I think The Room is referencing this movie.
But yeah, we got the big reveal that it is. Although the thing is, because we've seen Dee Dee so many times, and like, you'd have to be a criminal to wear big boots on the bed sheets as well. Like,
I was like, that's the Dee Dee, and then it's like, no, we tied up your girlfriend. I'm like, oh no.
But I don't know. I had a discussion with someone about this yesterday because I posted a picture of me and names from Fallout.
Oh, Ella Purnell.
Purnell, that's it. And in the picture, she has her shoes on a bed. And instantly someone was like, no, get your shoes off the bed. Get them off the bed. But then another friend went, well, what if they are, shoes for enjoyment purposes, let's say. Let's keep it PG. And I was like, okay, yeah, you do. There are different types of boots for different
things.
That's
why Jordan doesn't, that's why he doesn't blink. Like, there could have been a version where he comes in and he's just like, hello. It's like, get your goddamn feet off the bed. Or he could have been like, oh, the boots are on.
Yeah, see, he is a dirty pervert who likes boots on the bed.
Yeah, and that's fine.
Yeah.
If that's his thing.
Yeah, and also it could be like, as we discussed last season, there's now the phenomenon of Clussy as well.
Yeah.
Well, of course, one of my friends, Danica, who is she's like a clown burlesque dancer, and she said that she's slept with several people who are just like, they're into the makeup and stuff, and like they'll wake up clown makeup smeared all over their faces going like, I've never been happier, and all this kind of stuff. So it could be that Jordan Pryce is like, oh, to be honest with you, menage a trois, is that what's happening here? Because I'm not into it, Like,
He seems like he would be into it, wouldn't he? Let's be
Yeah,
our business
I
here-
get that vibe from him.
Yeah.
Like they Ghoul interrupts them and stuff. But if Jordan Pryce had just been like, our business here is concluded, so it's time for play, baby.
That's
Maybe,
I'll get another
maybe
glass of
that's a
champagne.
reference. Maybe that's a reference that it's Ghoul talking like Walken, trying to do a menage a trois on a boat.
Oh my
Oh
god.
no.
That'd be amazing if that was such a deep cut thing. That Michael Rosenbaum he saw a scene of people nearly getting killed on a boat. And he's like, I'm gonna bring in, and he's trying to convince someone else to do a really good Robert Wagner impersonation.
Oh my god, that would be genius. I somehow think we're
That's so
reaching.
dark.
That's a nice callback to our Batman Returns as well, where we for further details on the Chris Walken, Robert Wagner, Natalie Wood
my
mystery,
God.
as it were.
Now, let's call it that, a mystery. That's probably the safest bet. We won't get sued.
Yeah. We were so convinced that because it was all back in the press when we were doing that as well. We were like, is Chris Walken going to be like a convicted felon by the end of this by the end of the season? And it just went away again. But
And that could be a good thing or a bad thing. That's I don't know.
But yeah, that was one thing as well. I was just thinking to myself is that, like, we noted in a previous chunk that the voice of Tim Drake as a boy, Matthew Valencia, couldn't do like the crying and the laughing and all the stuff. So Andrea Romano, the voice director, had to come in, and so she's the voice of Tim Drake in those scenes. But of course, then they do like a little thing of like, oh yeah, you've got your girlfriend tied up by the pier there. someone had to do her voice. I'm just wondering who. There's no one in the credits for that. Like, did they have to? Andrea Romano was like, I guess that's me.
I'm already here.
Well. Yeah. Did they go get like, Angie Harmon, you can do this, or like Tara Strong, come on, get in there. We need someone to be the voice of like the inaudible voice of his girlfriend for like 2 seconds of the movie.
There was a phase where I really wanted to be a voice actor, and it was stuff like that got me, where it was just like, and now I will make the noise of being hit by a, and it was just like, you just see them in the booth, and I'm like, I don't know that I can do that.
I bet that's harder than it sounds. Yeah. Because on paper, you'd be like, oh, yeah, I can. Oh, I'm getting hit.
Yeah.
But it's actually to get it right and sound okay. Difficult.
Yeah.
It's very,
I guess in this scenario too, they'd have like, do we literally put a cloth over her mouth or what? Or is it just like, I can just wing it? Like, what? Is there props involved? What happens here?
I'd be method. I'd want props and stuff. Yeah.
But it also reminded me too. I saw, look at that guy. It's not Pete Davidson. It's the guy who does Batman. He dresses up as Christian Bale Batman and does all those sketches and stuff. His name's Pete something.
Yeah. Me and names again. My fatal flaw.
I saw a thing of him recently doing stand up, and he was talking about like he was just thought it was hilarious that those people who do voiceovers in video games like have lives and stuff. So there's people out there with like dreams and aspirations, and like they have a wife and kids, and they have a favorite cereal, and they've got all these these little details about their lives and stuff. And then they have to go into a recording booth and be like, "Okay, Tim, this is take 52. Okay, Hadouken, Japan, and all this kind of stuff." But he's falling over laughing, talking about it himself.
That's amazing. I mean, you reference in Street Fighter that was always my favorite, where they just announce the countries. Yeah. Brazil.
Yeah. There's places in the world, and I can't say without doing it in the Street Fighter. Japan being one of them. Japan.
I still hear it. Yeah.
USSR. Thankfully, that one's not much of a problem anymore.
Yeah, I don't think that comes up a lot, unless you're me talking about history. I don't think most people talk about it.
Well, unfortunately, some people would love to have that back, so. I've still got my 89 globe, my little light up Fisher Pryce globe downstairs, so.
Still got it on.
It's, I was just like, just waiting for this to make a comeback, apparently.
For a second there, when you said, every time someone says anything about 1989, I think of Batman. It's like, was it a Batman globe?
Of course.
It was just a normal globe from 1989.
No, it's Batman themed.
It's just like, Taylor Swift, was she making references to Batman 89 in that album? It's like, no, it was just the year she was born.
Now, this boat situation, we get Batman because he's coming to speak to them too. Because we didn't mention this, after he leaves Tim in mid-conversation. He's learnt well from Bruce. He's learnt well. He leaves because he realizes, okay, I've got to go, and there's one more guy I've got to speak to, basically. So he's on his way.
I was thinking, though, that was Tim trying to get him back, though, because Tim had his little bit of sass where he's like, your stealth needs work. I heard you coming a mile away or whatever. But then Terry gets that on him. And Tim shot out, I knew you were going to do that as well. Like, I heard you leaving.
No, Terry's thinking, got him.
Like, yeah, that's right. You never saw that coming, asshole.
But he does, on the way, he spots something's up. So he decides, I'm going to listen in. And he catches that they were in cahoots, all these people. And they tried to kill Wayne. He was in on it. Of course he was in on it. He's a scumbag.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love the way Jordan Pryce says, like, our business is concluded. Like, he's not kind of getting the vibe of like, oh yeah,
no.
DD's in your bed trying to get the drop on you. They left your girlfriend on the docks. I don't know if anyone else is on this boat as well, by the way. Like, it seems pretty huge, but that was the one person they left behind.
Staff that he's treated badly and will happily see him thrown overboard, not a problem.
I think it's someone being cocky with their power, a bit like what's his name in Die Hard, who goes and negotiates with Hans.
Takashi.
Oh, yeah.
No, the other guy who thinks...
Ellis. Yeah, for
Ellis.
Arthur Reeves, the other red herring from Mask of the Phantasm.
Couldn't remember the character's name. Ellis, that's it.
When you were watching, Tierney, did they get you with Jordan Pryce? Were you sitting there going like...
Yeah, there was definitely a part of me. And the fact that he was like... And it's like, okay, yeah, they're here. because he's the, oh, nope, they're killing him.
Ah. And so how did the twist work for you? Did you think that was like, what the hell, when it was Tim Drake, or did you see it come in any way, or?
I don't know. It was one of those things where I didn't see it coming. I wasn't like, oh my God, I know exactly what it's going to be. It's going to be this. But when they said it, it's not like I was like, oh my God, pause the movie while I process this. Like, it makes sense, and then they immediately explain how and so that was lovely. Yeah, no, I said when we were like, well, you don't have to rewind at the end, but like, while we have stopped the DVD but are still hanging out in the living room, I said that I really liked the way this movie came together. Like, it was a movie. I did not need too much backstory to understand what was happening. Like, I could sit down and watch it, and it was self-contained enough, and the story came together, and it had a beginning, middle, and an end, and there was a twist. The twist is resolved, and then you've got a little tag at the end where it could be something fun, opening up the door for other things, or it could just be like, yeah, they got out of jail, what else is new? Yeah, if you're not versed in the lore, you can still sit down and watch this movie. Yeah. And it's not going to take much to get you up to speed. Like I said, I think it was 3 sentences and boom, press play.
Yeah. And that's a mark of good writing, really, because you shouldn't. It should be great for fans, but also if you're excluding new people, I mean, you've lost already, basically.
Yeah.
That's what's so good. I haven't seen Furiosa yet as of recording, but that's what's so good about Fury Road, the Mad Max movie, because it's like, well, if you have seen the previous ones, you could go, well, this is maybe the same Mad Max. You can understand, his backstory. But if you haven't seen them, it doesn't matter. It doesn't impact the movie. You could even say it's not the same guy.
Yeah. Whereas with Furiosa, it's like, no, you really need to have seen the previous one.
I can imagine that's what it's like. Yeah.
Otherwise, you're like, why are they focusing on this little kid so much for most of it? Like, where's Anya Taylor-Joy? Why there's some little girl who's not Anya Taylor-Joy for like half the movie? It's crazy. I think it's always nice to get in like people coming at this with fresh eyes as well, because I'm still in my mind for like 20 plus years I've known like, oh yeah, so Tim Drake's the Joker, etc. But I'm just sort of like realizing how definitely it is played out. Like, they're doing their own Susan twist here. Yeah. Where like, yeah, we have Mark Hamill voicing the guy, clearly setting up that it's him. And then in this scene to have a little reveal to be like, no, the Joker. Mark Hamill is playing the Joker, talking to them as they're talking to Mark Hamill. So it's like, what the hell's going on then? Like, it's kind of crazy, yeah.
And he just flees. So it's not like, oh, he is one of the bad guys. He just happens not to be the Joker. So, your brain automatically is connecting like, okay, this guy's the bad guy. And, obviously he had some suspicions of him, oh, he's got the best motive. I've got to go talk to him. So like Terry is very suspicious of Tim, but I don't think I was. I think I saw an elderly man who had been shocked at seeing the Joker on TV and was like, oh, this ain't good. And, and they have a conversation and he's like, yeah, I get why you think it could be me, but I've just left that in my past. And I'm like, all right. I mean, unless I see other evidence that answers that question.
Yeah.
Were you convinced, though, from that one little bit of Barbara, like, offhandedly going, it could be Harley, but nah. Like, we're like, oh, it's got to be Harley at the end. I'm waiting for that Harley reveal.
I feel like so. I was thinking, like, Harley is definitely not dead. And I wasn't sure if it was going to come up or if they were just going to kind of run out of runway in a animated movie that can't be, 3 hours long at that point in time. Now I would assume that she's not only going to appear, but have an entire story arc that takes 45 minutes because movies don't want me to be able to pee anymore.
No, they want us to be ill. They're trying to cause a UTI.
Speaking of Furiosa.
That's my favorite when someone's like, I cry a little when I see old movies with the intermission cards and it's like, they used to love us.
It's true. I've said it on this show, I believe. Bring back the intermission. I know it'll eat up a bit of your time, as the theatre, but you'll also make more money because I'm going to go to the toilet. On the way back, I'll grab another drink.
I think now, because there are other things like, people just smuggle in their own food. So,
but I'd be tempted to pick something up, even if I'd smuggled my own in. It'll be gone by that point. You eat it before the film starts, and you drink before the film starts.
But yeah. a couple of little details I just love throughout like the yacht scene. Again, just Jordan Pryce's attitude of the our business here is concluded. I don't know, from like rich guy in denial of the situation that's happening to him because now like with all his power he can't do anything. It really reminded me. It's a different energy, but it reminded me of that bit, really undersung moment in Twin Peaks when. During one of the big... Are you familiar with Twin Peaks, Tierney? Do you know all the twists and turns of it?
I don't know all the twists and turns. I'm familiar with it, but have not watched it.
Would you think in the future, would you watch it? Because I don't want to give away anything if it's a thing that you're likely to get to at some point in your life.
No, you can go ahead. It's fine.
There's a bit where, like the episode where it's revealed to Agent Cooper and us, the audience, who the killer is. And instead of going, it's him, you're under arrest, he goes to Ben Horne as a little subterfuge. And he's like, Ben Horne, I place you under the arrest for the murder of Laura Palmer. And Ben Horne has this moment where he's like, no. And he just tries to boot out the door. Like, he's just a rich guy going like, what do you mean? Like, no. He's basically, it's like he's doing the Elise Myers thing of like, I do not accept that. I do not, like, the universe is delivering this to me, and I do not accept what's happening to me, except he's been put under arrest and he can't do anything.
That is... not to like alienate, but whatever, if they're listening to this, having the 34 guilties read out in a row was so satisfying. As someone who grew up in the New York area and has known that man as a sleazeball, like as long as I learned his name, and it was because he was having to give millions to Ivana. Like, I mean, just has never been a good guy. Like, just sleazy, gross, and again, a rich guy who's like, I will just buy my way out of these problems. It will be fine. Like, it was so cathartic to hear, like, you're a criminal. Like, we've known that, but now we can say it. No, alleged, we're done here.
Yeah, that was just gonna, the next day, people who are, I guess they're just trying to be realists, were just coming on going like, he'll still get off with it though. It'll be a mistrial or something like that. And it's just like, just let people enjoy things for one day.
Let us have this moment. Because you know what? They can't take that moment away from us. Whatever does end up happening, we will have always had that day.
That's like, those people are probably right. Something will probably, but just enjoy it while, enjoy it for now.
Yeah, I do. It was about quarter to midnight here when it was announced, and I was really getting ready for bed, and I just checked my phone, and I was like, "What? Oh my god!" And so, like, it's like, all right, I'm up for the next 45 minutes now at least. I gotta tell you. And just love the little things they put in here, like Ghoul's revealed, and then he's just like, we gotta make it quick, because Wolf here gets seasick easy. And the hyena man comes in just like, ugh.
Also, have we talked about this, right? Because you saying that, I just fast forwarded through to try and get there. And I've just noticed, you're probably going to tell me we talked about this. Ghoul, his little crop top, his little sexy crop top.
Yeah.
The stitches on his stomach are the mouth.
Oh, no, I don't think we did talk about this.
This is so elaborate. Go to 3 minutes and 37 seconds. It's the mouth.
Oh, yeah.
And that's not an accident.
Oh, I do not enjoy that.
I like it. That's cool. Because I imagine he's drawn those stitches on. He's not stitched together.
Yeah. Okay, unless he had like a appendicitis or something when he was a kid. And he's just like, I'm going to make this my whole thing now.
Maybe.
That's what actually gave him the idea.
See, some days though, when he wants to convey that he's shocked, he rubs the stitches on his stomach off, and then like the belly button is the mouth, and it's just it's going like, oh.
Nice.
I love the idea that they're literally drawn. They're not tattoos. He's like, no. My parents wouldn't let me get that.
There's so much about the Jokers. Just like they're just poser kids.
Yeah, I can accept that. That's fine. I'm back on board.
It's all down to like when the Henry Rollins one at the start was all really trying to size up the Joker, and as soon as he had a gun pulled on him, he's like, "Oh, hey man, calm down." Like all the toughness just melted away in that exact moment, And
that's the thing, like they're hard to take seriously, and I think that's part of. I mean, Pryce is a sleazebag who's just bought his way out of every problem he's ever faced, but it is hard to face the reality that the Jokers are about to kill you. I can kind of see that denial kicking in of like, but they're not really going to do that. It's going to, be a joke. It's fine. And then it's like, oh, wait a minute.
I think also, too, it's just like he probably never took them seriously because he's just like, oh yeah, they're like street kids.
Yeah.
And they like dressing up in stupid outfits and like, yeah, like I'm a rich pal, you know, I've got all the money in the world. They're never going to get to me. And then to be like, oh no, I'm on this yacht by myself and they do violent things, these people. And I literally, so I think, yeah, again, it's just the tone of that line of like, our business here is concluded. Like he's just trying to be a bit firm of like, just in case you're not aware, we're done, all right? So there's nothing more for us to talk about, you know? Everything's fine, right? And then they'll be like, no. And then they do a really annoying thing where I think it's supposed to be kind of a pun, but they kind of ruin it themselves because they're saying, you know, the boss told us we had to, you know, not to leave any, you know, that you're a loose end.
Oh, yeah.
And Ghouls was like, and loose ends need to be tied up. And then he handcuffs him to a table. And it's like, well, that's locking someone up. That's not. The loose ends need to be tied up. If it cut to him tying him with a rope to the table, I'd be like,
well, you're being
enough.
very literal.
But it's just like, yeah, it's just, you know, it's the handcuffs. They're like, yeah, you ruined it though. You ruined it. Imagine if the Joker was there in person, he would be like, you idiots!
Yeah.
It was such a good setup, and now it's all been destroyed.
That's actually a good point. The Joker would never miss an opportunity to make a gag out of it, so he would tie them.
That's true. Yeah.
Oh no, 100%. I think they almost are disappointed they didn't put in a bit of him finding out that that's what they did, and it was like, but it was all a setup, you idiots. Yeah, just because it's always his thing is he can't let a joke go. Like it's just in the middle of a plan. He's like, I could turn this into a joke. It's like, well, he's gonna go for it.
That's my favorite when he gets his comeuppance because of that.
And then we get Terry coming onto the window, and we find out he's got like a little fingerprint thing that's also like a microphone or like one of those old timey horns that old people would have to hold up if they were hard of hearing.
But in microchip form, because it's the 90s and computers are obviously the coolest thing ever for the future.
Of course. It also seems like a very dangerous place to put that, though, because like, how is it activated? And are there times where he might be like touching something, and all of a sudden he's just got like all this audio blaring into his ear. I'm just like, oh Jesus!
I left the volume up.
It was like an episode of Father Ted where they're staking out Pat Mustard. I don't know if this Father Ted means anything to you, Tierney, but very sillish Irish sitcom.
I have a minor in Irish studies and actually had to write a paper on Father Ted.
Hey.
Oh, wow. Oh, fantastic then. So you know exactly what it was. But you remember the episode with Pat Mustard, the milkman. Now I just want to talk to you. Like, what was this paper about? Like, can you send me it?
No, I'm very old. The minute you said, so you remember this episode, and I'm like, I know.
No.
All details are gone from my brain.
The one with Dougal in the milk cart where it's like speed, but it's like he has to go like 5 miles per hour and all that stuff.
Incredible episode.
But there's a bit at the start where they're staking out Pat Mustard, and like he's got like a little satellite sonar like audio device to try to hear inside the house. And Dougal's just like, oh, I'll turn it up all the way in case I can hear through the walls. And as soon as he does, a truck just blares past going like, and it's just Arnold Hanlon going like, and just falling down the seat outside. But I can just imagine that happen to Terry, just as like he picks up a pen and he's like, oh, Jesus Christ, what the hell is that? It's just the sound of the ink inside sloshing from side to side.
Oh, man. All right. I wonder if you guys had this too. Because I grew up in America, and we would have, when you get older, where you're not having naps like after lunch and everything, but you would definitely hit a point in the afternoon with the teachers like, everyone just like put your head down on your desk and be quiet for 10 minutes.
Oh, yeah.
And did anyone else 100% after you had learned about the concept of atoms? I was convinced I could hear the atoms moving in my desk. Because they had taught us like everything is made up of atoms and they're always constantly moving. And I'd put my head down on my desk and be like, I can hear them.
It's like the same. It's like this being able to hear the ocean and the seashell thing, where it's just like, oh, well, you're here because you're cupping a thing to your ear. You're just hearing the blood vessels and stuff inside your ear, because of the way that. But I guess it's the same kind of thing. It's like, yeah, you're just probably just hearing the blood vessels and whatnot inside your ear because you're pressed down to the desk and stuff. But I wish they would bring that back for like, So I'm 4 months into a new office job. I worked from home for like 10 years, so it's all kind of like a new experience to me. And I'm only now kind of got about like, this is when I need to caffeinate to be able to get through the day productively. Because every time after lunch, it'll be like, no. Like I'm like Ben Horn trying to escape going, no, I'm not working right now. Like I'm going to need a minute to like just zone out, you know? But I can't do it because the work's surprisingly demanding. So it's like, no, you can't. You don't have the time to do that. You've got to be on this. So it's taken me 4 months to be like, if I take this amount of coffee here and then this later in the day, because I don't want to become dependent on it either. And so I've only now kind of like worked out, this is the optimal time. This will get me through without any kind of lag.
No, you should just be like me, you're just constantly drinking it. It's like I basically have it on a drip.
I think if I did that, though, I would have like a full-on anxiety breakdown because I'm already anxious anyway. So it's like, no, if I did that, I would give myself a heart attack, basically.
It does actually have a downside in that it doesn't affect me. So people are like, I'll have a coffee to keep myself going. It doesn't do anything.
Yeah.
It's just like, what else is new?
No, that's what I don't want. I don't want to become like, I need this to get through the day. And also, I don't want something like that happening because then it's just like any other drug addiction where it's just like you're going to keep pushing it and pushing it and pushing it until you have to just keep going for bigger and bigger things and stuff. It's like, no, if I can just get through with it with like maybe I'm now conceding to 2 cups of coffee. Like it used to be,
5 or 6. Yeah.
I used to be like 1 in the afternoon. I would do, and then I was like, all right, I'll get one I had a travel mug that I left on the train. Damn it! But I had a travel mug. I was like, I'll drink this on the way in, and now and now it's just like, no, I think you need a proper you need one as soon as you get there, and then one around lunchtime, and then that actually gets you.
That does the trick. Yeah.
Well, but yeah.
What do we think Terry's coffee order is?
Well, he's a kid, isn't he? So it's like.
But he's not a kid. Or maybe I'm misunderstanding that. I was taking him as a young adult, not a kid.
But I think people like that, I don't think he'll have developed a taste for just like a black coffee yet. That seems to come a little bit later in life. I'd say he's a bit hip, he's a bit cool. You know, he's got a girlfriend. Oh, he's a cool kid. I think he's probably having the, I don't know, caramel latte, those kind of things.
I was thinking caramel latte too. You still have a little bit of a sweet tooth, you know, but it's still slightly sophisticated. It's slightly a little bit adult and a little bit sophisticated. But it's also basically a candy.
To be honest, if I go to like not like a fancy coffee shop, if I go to like a Starbucks or something like that, I will get a drink like that because at home I only drink black coffee. So if I'm going somewhere like that, well, not only is there just straight up coffee not the best, but
you want something you're not going to make yourself.
Exactly. Yeah. Right. Yeah. I can make a black coffee at home. Great. I can't make their weird dessert concoctions at home.
we just this week, John, when we went out to the Black Cat, and I ended up getting a raspberry matcha.
Yeah.
And it was just like the whole reason I went up there. I was just like, is this on offer? Like, I've never had that before. I'm going to have to go for that. And it was weird because I was like, can I get a hot raspberry matcha? And then they were all sort of like around the machine going, we don't know if we can actually make that. Like,
maybe it's the first order of it, yeah.
I think it was, and they eventually came up and they were like, we can't do it. We can't actually, it doesn't work. And then eventually they did do it, and they came over and it didn't work because it was like a really nice cup of matcha and then this like really tart aftertaste of raspberry. And I was like, oh no, those things don't blend. Whereas maybe if I'd gone for the iced version, it would actually be quite nice, but it was, But yeah, no, I'm the same thing. I was like, I can get a black coffee anywhere. I'm not going to, if I'm here, I'm going to try whatever you got on offer. But
exactly.
But, you know, maybe hanging around with Bruce, though, he's like, I want to be cool in Batman. Like, so maybe I should try black coffee. Because, you know, Bruce he'd be black coffee.
I think Bruce is a coffee guy. Even though Alfred was always making him tea, I think he drank that out of politeness.
Yeah, I think Alfred was trying to, like, keep his blood pressure at least somewhat under control.
Yeah.
Whereas if Bruce left to his own devices, would have just been black, like you said, like a drip, like just carry it around with me.
And I imagine he doesn't even have, even though he's rich, I reckon he doesn't have fancy stuff. He's like, no, I'll just have the instant. It's quick. It's easy.
Yeah. Although I was about Bruce might have been like a green tea guy though, because then he's traveled. He might have been in Japan. You know?
True.
And he's just like, I've tried green tea, and then like it's all these antioxidants and whatnot, also highly caffeinated, and like this is I've worked this out to be the optimal drink for what I need. Kind of
That's
thing.
a good point. Yeah.
Or you might
good
find out
option.
that, like, oh no, black coffee gives him like a slight jitter or something. And he's like,
I
no,
think
I can't
it
have that.
depends because, like, Christian Bale's Batman, I think you're right on the green tea, but this Batman is definitely not doing that. Like, he's not making his own, matchas and stuff. Like, he's just, like you said, a couple scoops into the machine.
Mm-hmm.
That must have been like a big transition for him. Obviously, when Alfred, we're assuming that he's dead at this point. It must have been huge for him because it's just like, no one else knows all the stuff that I like. Like, no one knows anything about me except me.
Oh my God,
so
do you think he
like,
still sometimes makes afternoon tea just out of, like, feelings, not because he actually wants it?
There is an episode where Barbara comes to visit, and he makes a pot of tea for them. And he's all just like, yeah, I can't do those weird little tea cakes that he used to make, but, I know you liked them. And she's like, crumpets? You mean? He's like, yeah, crumpets, I can't do them. So it's like a little bit of like, oh, no, he does. He's trying and stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, it must be weird because he would just have to get used to, like, usually I come home and there's, like, a meal here. And it's, optimized to exactly what I needed and whatnot. And now I have to make that myself. Like, it's... Can I order in takeaway every night? No, I don't want to answer the door that often.
Yeah.
So
but there was a phase of that. There was
sure.
definitely a phase of all takeaway delivery to Wayne Manor.
Like, it was so tragic for him, though, because, again, he's had this big falling out with Dick. No. Tim, obviously, all that happens, so he goes away. Barbara and him, obviously, for the unfortunate reasons.
He's rich enough, he can hire someone to come in and stock his fridge once a week with pre-made meals like all the celebrities do.
That's true.
It's like,
do that.
Yeah, it's really easy to eat healthy if someone else prepares everything for you and labels it, eat this on Monday at this time.
And he does live to like 100 or something in the continuity of the show. So, like, whoever he's paying, he's not paying them enough, I guess. But
I think he's got a little meal share thing going.
That's always the thing, though, as you said, Tierney, is if you're rich enough. It still always really bugs me that, like, when Kevin Smith went vegan and he was raving about vegan ice cream, he's like, it's so delicious. Like, why isn't everyone just eating this all the time? And it's like, because that brand you're buying, Kevin, is like $10 a carton. Like, it's insanely expensive. That's why everyone else is buying the cheap ice cream because they can't afford the friggin' expensive swanky stuff that you're getting. So.
No, absolutely. I mean, I'm not vegan. I'm vegetarian, but most of my food is vegan. So I do eat a lot of vegan ice cream and stuff, but only when it's on offer because it is more. Even just like the Ben & Jerry's, it's like, oh yeah, it's like over here at least, it's £1 more on top of the normal one. It's like, why?
Yeah. And even now I've got money. I can't I've not got money, but I'm like,
you're rolling in it.
You don't have Bruce Wayne money.
I don't have Bruce Wayne money, but I still will stop myself. I've been like, £1.50 more. Nah, it's not worth that.
That's how you keep your money.
Yeah, yeah. And then it'll be all there after I'm dead, and I won't ever have got those spent.
Scrooge McDuck over here.
But speaking of wasting money, though, because then eventually Terry smashes through the window. I love the fact he smashes through this window, and then 2 seconds later they smash out another window.
I like that. And there's like not even a second, but there is a beat of pause for you to appreciate the laugh. Yeah. Of him coming in and them going right back out. A different one. They didn't jump out the already smashed window. They had to smash their own.
I just kind of wanted to have Jordan have a little,
God damn it.
I flew that glass in from Romania. It's the best. Wasn't that a story from the set of Apocalypse Now, Tierney? That like Coppola would
Malik crystal.
Yeah. Where they spend a fortune to fly in the type of glass he liked or something.
No, it was a misunderstanding, but one that only Francis Ford Coppola could have gotten into. So the story is that these amazing crystal glasses were sent to the Philippines, to Manila. And it cost, how many thousands of dollars and everything. They were supposed to go to the house in San Francisco, or I guess it was in Napa at that point. But because he had been such a tyrant of he was flying in plenty of stuff that he did not need. They would have 3 air conditioners, and the Italians, he let them order food from Italy to come on. So the dailies for Apocalypse Now were being processed in Rome because the guy only trusted this one
Absurd.
person. So they would fly the dailies from Manila to Rome and back. It took like 2 weeks. And they would throw all the olive oil and bread and pasta and stuff on the plane with. And so when he said, "Oh, I want these glasses," the person was like, "Okay, yeah, that must just be, he wants them there." And he threw a hissy fit and was like, "I can't believe you're wasting all this money. And I wanted them in California. And why didn't anyone ask me?" And it's just like, my dude, because you've terrified everyone. No, that was, they flew all that in. They did not realize that they had to like still pay taxes on it all. So it would end up being like $40,000 worth for groceries. And they were storing all the pasta in his house because he had like a proper house in Manila. And when the hurricane came, someone literally yelled like, "Save the pasta, get it out," because the water was coming in the first floor. They had to move the pasta up.
Incredible.
So I just imagine all this like hurricane cooked pasta floating.
And people like gathering it out of the flooded waters and just like, "Oh, it's soft now, eat it, don't let it go to waste."
So yeah, that's always part of the, "Here's your Lalique crystal." My what?
That's like the idea now though. He's made Megalopolis. He's just like spent like 400 million or whatever on it. He's just like, "That's right, it's my own money, so no one can give out to me about it." All right, It's entirely self-funded. So yeah, I flew in this from there. What of it?
Complain now.
Yeah. That was the original title of the film, was Complain Now.
Complain Now.
Spiritual sequel to Apocalypse Now. Oh. But yeah. So Terry looks out the window, and the Jokers have got they've got little skiffs or whatever that were just
flying
hovering.
jet skis.
Oh,
basically.
I will say Wolf recovered very quickly from that seasickness.
Yeah, he was faking it.
Oh.
I think he's just wanting some sympathy. He's
Yeah.
There we go.
Or maybe he just didn't want to come the entire time, and he's just like, "Oh no, I got seasick," and they're like, "No, get on the boat." Like, "Oh no, my stomach."
That's it.
But when there was a chance to actually hurt someone, I feel fine. They escape on like jet skis, basically.
Yeah, little Star Warsy kind of things again that disappear. But it's the fact that like Terry didn't spot them anywhere, so it's like, where have they been? And I'm guessing they have like little synchronized watches or whatever.
That's an excellent point, though, because we saw the outside of the boat,
Oh,
and they weren't there.
Yeah. So
Maybe
I guess
they're underwater.
Are these remote control jet ski things?
But we saw the Joker was fetching them, like, and maybe he was on the way back. But no, I think they still kind of seem like
it's just them.
Yeah.
I'm going with they go under the water and they press a button and they come up.
Yeah. That would actually make sense, because then maybe you could have a setting there's like it never gets more than a couple of feet away from you or whatever, and so it'll be just under the water, and then they can call it up or something.
But still stealth.
Yeah.
Because these guys are all about stealth, obviously.
No, absolutely, yeah. They're very discreet.
And then the big reveal, of course, is at the end that the Jokers have been working for aliens the whole time. It's a big. Again, Tierney, your familiarity with Close Encounters of the Third Kind will come in handy here. Because presuming in the next chunk, a big spaceship's going to appear from attached to this giant light in the sky.
Turkey.
Did you also spot too that Terry Garr is in the film as well?
Yes, I did. I said, I was watching the names come up, and I'm just like, oh my god, this movie is going to be awesome.
And then she's only in it for like 2 seconds.
Yeah. Well, you can't have everything.
Yeah. But yeah. Again, I just have to say, like, this type of thing just always reminds me of the opening to Mr. Bean, basically. It's just the giant weird light appearing in the sky and stuff. But yeah, like that's all the notes I've got for this chunk. Does anyone else have anything else to say about chunk 10 in particular, or about Batman Beyond Return of the Joker in general?
I'm noted out.
No. You just wanted to say chunk a couple more times, huh?
Yeah.
Chunk!
We are up all night to get chunky. Like that's it.
Yep.
Well, in that case, we can chuck this chunk overboard. We can head off into the dark night. Tierney, would you like to promote anything upcoming or whatever's going on?
It's funny you say upcoming. So I haven't been doing. I have not been recording a podcast, which isn't something I've been able to say since like 2015. It's been a very strange time in my life. I'm actually trying to write my next book. Turns out writing the second book is a lot harder than writing the first one.
I can imagine in a way, yeah.
So I will point people to onesteelsister.com, which has links to everything, and including guest appearances. Like, I haven't been doing nothing, but it feels like I've been doing a lot less, which, it's funny you were saying like, oh, I'm finally back in an office. Whereas it's like, before the pandemic, I was working full time for a law firm in the financial district and like the whole 9 yards. And now it's like, oh, what do you do? And I'm like, I don't know. I've got a cat. And
That's the best bit.
like, it's awesome. I love it. But it's just like, what, my therapist asked me, I have a new therapist. She's like, okay, so what are your hobbies? And I just looked at her blankly like, I can tell you what I used to do. So again, time means nothing. It's not a thing. But yeah, if you go to onesteelsister.com, you will see all my air quotes professional stuff there.
That's all your podcasting too. Like, you're one of the most, I think, like the most eclectic of the movies by minuters. Because like some people kind of, like me and John were kind of like, oh yeah, Batman stuff, and then we did, Miami Minutes, but it's also like ninja action movie kind of related stuff. And then you're going from like, oh yeah, Apocalypse Now to Close Encounters to Joe versus the volcano to this. Like, there's no thread between these films at all.
I started my first 2 podcasts, which recorded concurrently. Again, why? Why did I think this was a good idea? Yeah, and that law firm had a unlimited access to a free coffee machine that made like lattes and cappuccinos and everything
on a drip.
And I just look back at my life and I'm just like, yeah, no wonder I was miserable. That was bad. But my first 2 were Return to Oz Minute and The Never Ending Minute. So it's like, oh yeah, she's all about the 80s kids movies. And then I was just like, psych, MASH time.
Love it.
Yeah, like I said, I bring the chaos with me.
Well, if you want to join in with our chaos, you can come and join us on Facebook at the Bat Minute Listeners Cave, on Twitter at Bat Minute, Instagram the Bat Minute. Have to say it that way every time. Saying the Bat Minute doesn't sound right, does it?
Okay, Ohio University. Anyway.
These people call him Terry Batman Beyond. They never call him the Batman Beyond. It's always
well, that's now what we're calling him. He's the Batman Beyond. There you go.
The Batman Beyond.
And as we mentioned earlier on, we're on Patreon. Come and find us, our network, Sleepy Charlie Media. You can get bonus episodes. You can get commentary tracks. You can get outtakes of random crap. Anything that's not on the main feed just goes there. So it's an eclectic mix. So do that.
Yeah, and I got to shout out Jarf's most recent podcast, the Dazed and Confused 33 and a Third. I think that's how he says it out loud. But basically, I think, am I a pioneer? But the one song at a time format for Movies by Minutes podcast, I'm just like, this is...
Maybe you are.
I like it. I'm trying to think if anyone did it before me with American Graffiti. And it can be a really fun time. And he got way like fancier guests than I ever did for mine. He talked to like real people.
See, I've got my Hedwig and the Angry Inch show, but that's not song by song technically. It's chapter by chapter of the Blue Rider. So sometimes there's not a song.
Yeah.
So it's different.
I did say, as Jarf was departing, that I would plug his upcoming show as well, Dream Operators, which is something I was so excited about, but it's very niche, I think, is that it's a movie directed by David Byrne of Talkin' Heads, released in the 80s, that was tying into the Talkin' Heads album, True Stories. Yeah. So it's track by track, but they're covering a track of... from the album True Stories as it's acted out in the film by like John Goodman and people like that. It's a very strange film. It's a great idea for a podcast, to be fair. I'm on an episode talking about Wild Wild Life with a friend of the show, Allison Grimm, and we had a fantastic time because we're both big Talking Heads fans. So we were in our element in that moment.
Looking forward to that.
I have no idea, because obviously it's Josh's project. Don't know the exact ins and outs of it. But it'll be coming out this year, so it might be out already by the time this comes to air. So.
Yeah, give it a look anyway. Check it out, everyone. And check us out in 1 week, because we'll be back with Chunk 11 of our Joker Chunkathon. Woo, Joker's Chunkathon. Join us then, Batmites.
Next time, Batrina and the Waves.
There's nautical naughtiness with sinister, silly sailors and superpowered sky-high lasers as the Joker's Amscray and an adolescent successor struggles to save the day.
A hurried hero and a hostile hostage must evacuate now, as a death ray to the starboard bow makes a pricey yacht go kapow.
But as events turn titanic and a Bat Boy acts as a buoy, could it be that our Teen Templar is about to become seafood chop suey?
We've a close counter that'll leave you dazed and contused as Terry faces his apocalypse now. Next week, folks, same Bat Pod, different Bat Minutes.